Hello everyone, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. My name is Ilham Satmata Perdana, and I'm a student exchange from Indonesia in UP. And today we are from Group 2 want to present about Russia and the surrounding countries. First of all, Russia is the largest country in the world, which spans two continents, namely the continent of Asia, Northern Asia, and the continent of Europe, Eastern Europe. This country, which has the full name of the Russian Federation, has an area or about 9 times larger than the territory of Indonesia. Russia, formerly called the Russian Federation, and neighbor countries comprise 12 countries, together with the Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. They once formed the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or USSR, more commonly called the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union disintegrated in 1991, but today countries that comprise the region continue to share a common political and economic legacy of the Soviet system. This is illustrated by several intergovernmental organizations that have emerged in the region. The most noteworthy is the Commonwealth of Independent States, CIS, because it once included all 12 countries. Example of smaller groupings include the Eurasian Economic Community, or EAEC, the Collective Security Treaty of Organization, CSTO, and the Organization for Democracy and Economic Development, or GUAM, stands for Georgia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and Moldova. These organizations focus either on maintaining the trade flows established during Soviet times or on collective security. Beyond these issues, the entire memberships of this organization have little in common, particularly in terms of culture and natural environment. The Slavic countries, Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, including neighboring Moldova, the Southern Caucasus, like Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, and in the Central Asia is Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, of course, are all very different subregions. In time, these three subregions will likely integrate themselves into other world regions. Some researchers already include some or all of the Slavic countries with Europe and Central Asian countries, with Northern Africa and Southern Asia. While China is actively forming links with countries along its border. In reality, this process is far from complete, and it is premature to redraw the boundaries of the world regions so radically. Despite these countries' differing cultures and orientations, their common Soviet legacy has shaped their cultural development in particular ways and presents them with similar recurring. regarding economics and political problems. These countries have found it to their mutual benefit to continue working together, with Russia still the region dominant political and economic force. We find it appropriate to call the region Russia and neighboring countries. Stretching from Europe eastern edge to the Pacific Ocean, Russia and neighboring, it is the world's largest region in terms of land area. However, with much of its land either in the frozen Arctic environment of the north or the hot desert of the south, it is among the Earth's least populated world regions. Great distance river systems that flow toward places such as the Arctic Ocean, and extreme climates of hot and cold make it difficult to build rail and road. These conditions have prevented government from integrating the region with highly level transportation and communication networks. Also, the region's 100 plus ethnic groups as much in common with people of neighboring regions as with one and another. Okay, we are going to talk about Russia natural resources. Russian imperial and Soviet political, military and economic expansions were driven and enabled by the use of plentiful natural resources. Russia became a superpower in the mid of 90s. When political power was linked to steel and fuel output, the rocks of his region contain a huge quantities of a wide variety of mineral resources. Metallic minerals include iron and gold as well as many minerals that are in a short supply in the world. There are also diamonds and other valuable products. Many of these resources occur in the ancient rocks of the Siberian plateaus or have been washed by erosion into the intervening areas of sedimentary rocks in the northern sparsely inhabited areas. Include coal, oil, natural gas, and uranium. The Caspian Basin and Siberian lowland contains substantial oil reserve, perhaps as much oil as the Persian Gulf area. The countries of this region continue to be world leaders in producing fuels and other minerals, and their export assumes great significance in the face of economic losses from the transition in manufacturing and other economic activities. The main problem for these countries today is to build the requisite oil and gas pipelines. pipelines toward ports for both Caspian Sea and Siberian oil. Both cases pose many political, economic, and environmental problems. The taiga across northern Russia, from the world's largest forest area, covering 7.5 million square kilometer, 2.9 million miles, square miles, compared to 5.5 million kilometer or 2.12 million miles of rainforest in Brazil and 4.5 million square kilometers or 1.7 million miles of related coniferous forest in Canada. It provides a huge reserve of biodiversity and is important in world climate change, taking up one bird as much carbon dioxide as tropical rainforest absorbs over a similar period. Owned by the state, this resource has been well regulated and little reduced by logging or fires. State planning located all the Soviet Union paper and pulp miles west of the Ural, making it costly to transport the wood from Siberia. Although large corporations began to cut more of this forest since the 90s, and potential tax revenues from such cutting make it an attractive prospect for Russia. The central bureaucracy continues to slow the process. Okay. In Russia, there is desert, grassland, forest, and tundra. The natural vegetation, much shared, altered by human occupation, is heavily influenced by its latitudinal location and relationship to climatic factors of temperature and water availability in desert. Hot desert in the south change northward to steppe grassland to deciduous and coniferous forest, and to tundra on the shores of the Arctic Ocean. This latitudinal distribution are interrupted only by mountain range. The desert of the area east of the Caspian Sea contain few patches of grass and oasis vegetation, and were once occupied by nomadic people. Trade routes via the region's oases provide long-established links between Europe and China. North of the desert, the steppe grasslands grow on fertile black earth soils, which are similar to the soils of the North America prairies. The steppes extend from southern Poland eastward through Ukraine into Kazakhstan, forming one of the world's most major arable regions. In the Middle Age, The steppe grassland provide the grazing lands through which wave after wave of invaders move westward into Europe. Now we are moving to second section. We are gonna discuss about climate. In Russia, there was three climates: dry climates, temperate climates, and polar climates. Okay, this is Köppen climates types of Russia based on Köppen. As you can see, there is so many type in Russia and surrounding countries. Okay, dry climates. The average temperature in dry is 11 Celsius or 51.8 Fahrenheit. Desert areas situated along the west coast of continents characterized by cooler temperatures than encountered elsewhere at comparable latitudes. These places rank among the driest on Earth. Summers are hot to very hot, and it rarely rains. During winter days may be cool or warm, and winter nights can be very cold. There is a big temperature difference between day and night. Like Kosh Agash, the driest Russian town. Temperate climate. Temperature is above minus 3 Celsius, below 18 Celsius in the coldest month. 4 to 7 months with an average temperature at least 10 Celsius. It have the least seasonal change and the warmest in winter. It covers areas of moderate weather in northern and southern. Experience moderate rain and snow. In the polar climate, it characterized by a lack of warm summers, has an average temperature of less than 10 Celsius. This climate covers more than 20% of the Earth's area, consists of cool summers and very cold winters, which result in treeless tundra, glaciers, or a permanent or semi-permanent layer of ice. It covers in Eurasian and northeastern. Russia has very extreme winter. For example, in the city of Yakutsk, the temperature can reach minus 64.4 Celsius and become one of the coldest cities in the world. Okay, now we enter the third section. We are talking about environmental problem. Many of the issues have been attributed to policies during the early Soviet Union, a time when many officials felt that pollution control was an unnecessary hindrance to economic development and industrialization. And even though numerous attempts were made by the Soviet government to alleviate the situation in 90s and 80s, the problems weren't completely solved. By the 90s, 40% of Russia territory began demonstrating symptoms of significant ecological stress, largely due to diverse number of environmental issues, including deforestation, energy irresponsibility, pollution, nuclear waste, and many else. According to Russia's Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, Russia is currently warming 2.5 times faster than the rest of the globe. Human activities cause serious environmental damage in many parts of the region. For centuries, inhabitants of the regions thought that The vast quantities of resources in their lands were inaccessible. Later, communism pressed that nature should be transformed to serve human needs, as simplified by Stalin's five-year plans, led to the massive exploitation and extraction of minerals and the construction of enormous factories, often built quickly with little thought that environmental protection. The difficulties of developing the natural resources within this world region and the priorities of production over environmental protection led to increasing environmental degradation of the tundra, forests, and desert areas. The emphasis on heavy industry, especially chemicals and steel, the nuclear industry, faulty storage of toxic rocket and oil, roasting of weapons, and excavation of metallic minerals laid waste to huge areas, many of which remain unreported and unreclaimed. A lack of capital investment from the late 80s until approximately 2005 has resulted in a lot of decaying infrastructure. For example, Russian capital equipment has an average age of over 21 years compared to about 10 years in the West. Consequently, frequent infrastructural failures cause environmental disasters, not to mention human ones as well. A few examples illustrate the range of environmental problems facing Russia and its neighboring countries. Frequent oil pipeline breaks, leakages, and spills are a major problem. For example, a section of the Sayano-Shushenskaya collapsed in Siberia in August 2009. This huge dam supplied 15% of Russia's hydroelectricity and 2% of its total electricity. The destruction resulting from the dam's failure created an oil slick 80 miles long on the Yenisei River, in addition to killing at least 50 people. Samget, north of Baku in oil-rich Azerbaijan, is one of the world's most polluted places. Once one of the main suppliers of petrochemicals to the Soviet market, its 30 or so industrial plants are now a huge wasteland of broken concrete, rusting factories, and abandoned railroad tracks. The air smells of chlorine and sulfur. The town is another legacy of environmental costs resulting from Soviet central planning. Okay, now move on to pollution of Norilsk. The city of Norilsk in western Siberia has the most polluted environment in Russia and is rated by the Blacksmith Institute as the top of 10 most polluted in the world. The region contains some of the world's richest deposits of mineral ore. The mining began there in 1930s with forced labor from Gulag. By 2015, MMC Norilsk Nickel promised to cut sulfur dioxide emission by investing in pollution prevention. The 1986 Chernobyl nuclear reactor explosion, which became a symbol for such disaster because it dumps on island, peninsulas, and in seas, especially along the Arctic island, and has effect around North Kiev and North Belarus. Before Chernobyl, in 1957, the Kirstim incident happens in the Urals exposed almost 500 people to harmful doses of nuclear radiation. Nuclear contamination puts the Urals high on the list of the most polluted areas of the CIS. By 2004, Chernobyl was offered as an international tourist venue. Aral Sea contraction. One of the greatest environmental disasters in the world occurred in the land east of the Aral Sea. Snow on high mountains to the east melts in spring, providing water to such rivers Amudarya and Sirdarya that flow into Aral Sea. Amudarya and Sirdarya provide water for local irrigation farming and small urban settlements, but Soviet Unions used the water on cotton farms inside and outside the main river basin. The project cotton farms extracted so much water that rivers stopped flowing into Aral Sea. In 2005, the World Bank provided 86 million for 30-kilometer dam to regulate flow of the Sirdarya. Threatened fisheries. The Black Sea, which is surrounded by 6 countries, is also under threat from environmental degradation. 70% of the sea 70% of the sea fish is threatened by a proposal by the Ukrainian government to build a large oil terminal and refinery near Odessa. Fish stocks and plant and animal life in the Black Sea are killed by industry. Only 5 of the 26 fish species caught in the 1960s were found in 1992. When the total fish catch of the 6 rim countries dropped to 10% of their 1986 haul. Deforestation and logging. Excessive logging is causing the widespread deforestation of certain areas of Russia. Illegal logging is also widespread, especially in the northwest and in the far east parts of Russia. It is estimated that Russia lost 1 billion every year due to illegal logging. According to the Center for Russia Environmental Policy, 60 million hectares of forests are lost each year to a variety of causes, including logging, pollution, and fires. Inefficient logging and clear-cutting strategies result in 40% of the harvested trees never being used, and the implementation of forest protection policies has been very slow. Russia has many protected areas, such as zapovedniks and natural parks, which are made to preserve the natural state of environments. There are currently 100 zapovedniks that cover a total of over 33.5 million hectares in Russia. However, some animals such as the armored tiger, polar bear, and Caucasian leopard are facing extinction. The Russian government is attempting to revive those populations. A tiger summit was held in St. Petersburg in 2010 to discuss how to save the dwindling tiger population, which is threatened by deforestation and poaching in Russia.
Okay, thank you, Ilham. So before we get started, I want to say hi and Assalamualaikum to everyone. My name is Ainnur binti Rahilah and I'm from Malaysia. I hope you guys stay home and stay safe. So let's continue into history and culture about Russia. Okay, Russia and neighboring countries cover more than 4 times as much land surface as the European world region, but the region is divided into 12 countries compared to the European, which has more than 13. The Russian Federation is larger than all the other countries in the region. It is nearly twice the size of the United States. The smallest country, which is Armenia, is the only size of the Maryland and Delaware. So this difference reflects the cultural and political history of the region, because the Russian Empire was one of Europe's great empires in the modern times, such as France and United Kingdom. They conquered the land overseas, but the Russian Empire conquered people and the land adjacent. To it extending its border as it annexed to the new territories. However, the Russia retained control over most of its conquered land, like Siberia, which is a huge resource-rich and populated area. The Siberia represent the Russian conquered in history. So, three major invading influences were Christianity, penetrating the region from the southwest. Second in Islam from the south, and lastly Mongol culture from the east. Many tribal and ethnic moving from all directions, especially the east. So the Central Asia along the Great Silk Road, the pathway that brought many goods and ideas from East and South Asia that eventually helped to build the European empires. Okay, so we're into the Eastern slave. As early as 1500 BC, a protect slavery people occupied land between Vistula and the Dnieper rivers. So they're divided into three main branches. The western and southern branches settled in East Central Europe, and then the eastern branches moved from north and developing its own character as it encountered the exchange ideas and practices with the Baltic and Viking people. Eventually, the eastern slaves subdivided further into Russian, Belarusian, and Ukrainians. So next is Rus. From the 800 Viking, which called Varangians in Russians, moved into the North European plain along the Volga River. And then they established control and began trading the amber, beeswax, fur, and precious metal for their newly acquired lands with Byzantium, which is capital of the Constantinople. And the Viking ruled as overlord by establishing their own dynasties or by marrying into and taking over the local dynasties. As Eastern slave that blended with the Viking, Baltic, and Finno-Ugric people, Rus came into being, and the term Rus is applied to both the people and their land. Okay, so the most important of the earliest, the Rus principalities were Novgorod and the Kiev. Novgorod was founded first, but Kiev grew more quickly with power, exacting tribute from the other Rus principalities. So in 988, Prince Vladimir brought Eastern Orthodox Christianity to Rus, tying the Eastern slave to Constantinople. And the prince is leading to the adoption of the Cyrillic alphabet, which was derived from the Greek alphabet. Over the time, Kievan Rus could not maintain its authority over the other principality of the Rus. Each began to exercise individually the authority. Novgorod and newer principality called Vladimir Suzdal with its capital of Vladimir were two of the most notable. In the 1200s, the Mongols or the Tatars swept in from the east and attacked the principality of the Rus. Those in the south suffered the most. Kiev was sacked in 1240. Novgorod escaped invasion, but it had to pay the tribute to the Mongols. And the Mongols, they have established the Khanate of the Golden Horde. It is a state that stretched from the steppes to Central Asia and Siberia. Okay, the Mongol influence on the development of Russian culture was very strong. The centuries after the fall of the Mongols, Napoleon said, "Scratch a Russian, you will want a Tatar." Okay, let's continue with Muscovy. Moscow emerged in the Principality of Vladimir Suzdal on the trade route between the Baltic and the Black Seas. Okay, it was an trading post at the time of the Mongol invasion, but its isolated forested location offers some protection from the Mongols, and it soon grew in importance. When the southern Rus principalities came under control of the Mongols, the Orthodox Christian metropolitan of Kiev and Rus moved from north from the Kiev to Vladimir in 1299. Okay, it's because increasing the authority of Vladimir Suzdal. In the early 1300, the Prince of Vladimir Suzdal cooperated with the Mongol. And in the 1318, the prince married the sister of the Khan of the Golden Horde and got titled as Grand Prince. Then, 1327, the metropolitan of the Orthodox Christian Church moved from Vladimir to Moscow. During the 1400s, the Grand Prince of Moscow conquered the other Rus principalities. These territories, governed from Moscow, came to be known as Muscovy. Moscow to be known as Muscovy. By 1480, Muscovy was so powerful and Mongol authority is so weak that Grand Prince Ivan III, which is the Great, simply stopped paying tribute to the Mongols. Okay, Ivan III married Sophia Penelope, which is the niece of the last Byzantine emperor. After the Constantinople fell to the Ottoman in 1453, Ivan was seen as the true inheritor of the Christian realm. He adopted the title Caesar derived from the Latin Caesar for emperor. With the succession of Ivan IV, which is the Terrible, the Patriarch of the Eastern Orthodox Church in Constantinople accepted Ivan's title of Caesar. Then Moscow claimed to be the third Rome because of the successor to Constantinople and Rome. Even today right now, the Russians are familiar with the concept that Moscow is the third Rome. So the figure 4.1.2 is picture of the Ivan III, which is the Great. Okay, we will get into about the Russian Empire. Muscovy grew in power and influence, but in 1613, Mikhail Romanov ascended the throne. The Romanov dynasty lasted until the last Caesar was deposed in 1917. From 1480, Muscovy's territory continued to expand, especially to the east, which into Siberia and Central Asia, but also to the west, to bring the Russian into contact with Central and Western European culture. So the greatest territorial expansion were made under Peter the Great, Catherine the Great, and Alexander I. Okay, so Peter expanded Muscovy boundaries to the Baltic Sea, where he founded the city of St. Petersburg and made it his country. We made his country. Petersburg made it his country new capital in 1712 and attempt to westernize his country. Okay. Peter built the first Russian navy to reorganize the military and government along the European and founded modern institution to the science and arts. Okay, the Muscovy became the Russian Empire. Then Catherine continued to westernize Russia in the late 1070s, which she is expanding farther to east, south, and west of Russia, where she founded the Black Sea part of Odessa. Then she established Russian influence in the Balkans. Okay, but by the end of Catherine's reign, Russia was clearly one of the Europe's great powers. Okay, in 1812, Alexander I was considered as Alexander I considered the savior of Europe because defeated the Napoleon attack on Moscow. Okay, Alexander I played a major role redrawing Europe's boundaries at the Congress of Vienna in 1815. Russia's boundaries moved further west with the acquisition of Finland, more of Poland, and Bessarabia, now Moldova, now known as Moldova. Okay, around the same time, Russia expanded into the Caucasus, taking the area around Baku. And Russia also took more interest in Alaska. By the early 1900s, the Russian Empire stretched its empire from Europe to East Asia and the Pacific Ocean, which made Russia a world power, and its strength is derived from its sheer size. Internally, it had problems politically and technologically. Politically, the Caesar remained in total control, continuing to claim to speak in the name of God, but their power inhibited the creation of an efficient government. By the techni- by the technologically, Russia was decades behind Western Europe. The technology of the Industrial Revolution developed very slowly in Russia, but then the Russia living further and further behind as time has progressed. Yeah, compared to the Western Europe. At the same time, Russia had expanded its boundaries to include more than 100 different people. The rise of nationalism in Europe in the mid 1080s, 1800s, Russia's various nations began clamoring for independence. The situation became worse as Russians themselves became nationalistic and began suppressing for non-Russians. Okay, then they developed the Russification policies were introduced to force Russia's minorities minorities to become more Russian, which more Russian like that. Okay, so we will take a look about the Soviet Union. So 4.2.1 competing for control. Okay, World War One, which in 1914 until 1918 exerted the great stress on the Russian Empire. By 1917, food shortage and a huge debt to combine with a long-standing opposition to Caesar's rules. Revolutionaries deposed Caesar Nicholas II and set up a provisional government that that proved weak. A number of national groups com- stake their claim their territories and declare independence for Finland. The Baltic countries. Okay, the Baltic country has three countries, which Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And then Belarus, Ukraine, Caucasus countries, which Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. And lastly, Central Asia, not at the time called Turkestan. Okay, then the Polish land of Russia joined with the Polish land of Germany and Austria-Hungary, and an independent Poland was declared. But Bessarabia, by now Moldova was annexed by Romania. Okay, by the late 1918, the Bolshevik, the communists, also known as Red, overthrew the government. The White, which anti-communists, tried to dislodge Bolshevik, thus creating a civil war. Then they tried to dislodge Bolshevik from power. Okay. In 1920, when Vladimir Lenin established the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR, commonly called the Soviet Union. This new country succeeded the Russian Empire, but the Bolsheviks, Bolsheviks changed the old system of government and economy. Okay, then they abolished the monarchy and government by a privilege a few replaced them with Soviets. Soviet were workers and soldiers conceived that drew their member from the common citizen. So economically, the Bolshevik despised capitalism, and so they reversed the result by putting the workers in charge of factory and business. They sought to create a dictatorship of the pro- proletariat and thereby a worker paradise. But religion was seen as a tool of the oppressor because the clergy sanctioned the rule of the politic because of the rule of political leaders and the capitalist exploiter who oppressed the common people. Consequently, the Bolshevik attacked the church and mosque, turning into turning others into scientific centers such as planetarium to show the error of religious belief because most of them because the Bolshevik is communist one. Again, for 4.2.2 5-year plans, okay. Lenin died in 1924, and within a few years, Joseph Stalin came to power, and he radically changed the government policy and implemented the 5-year plan in 1928. Okay, Stalin's form of governing became known as Stalinism. Some scholars question whether it was a form of communism, but Stalin believed it necessarily truly a form of communism. Stalin believed it necessary to transform the Soviet Union's economy forcefully into the communist ideal of a workers' paradise based on industrialization. However, no, this was also necessary to overcome the technology advantages of the Western country because the um, Russia is further behind compared to the Western countries in technology. However, the Soviet economy was largely in agriculture, and farmers could not relate to the urban industrial ideology of communism. They're not fully into it. But then the 5-year plan of Stalin focused on collectivization and industrialization. Under the collectivization, a small family farms were merged to create large farm with 1,000 of acres. Unlike the small farm and large farm were better designed to use modern farm machinery. Then under production in the new factories for them. Okay, then the government became the owner of the collective and the farmer became employees. Okay, this plan called for government ownership of all industries, giving a name to the action as the common economy. It is the government to set the quotas favoring heavy industry over production of consumer goods. Then the 5-year plan also established the central planning, making it contrast the capitalist economies, where more supply, demand, or profit did not dictate what would be produced. But with central planning, the government decided how many goods and services were needed by the citizen or by the society. Again, then almost without a cost consideration for them. This plan had prevented the Soviet Union from experiencing the worst economic depression of the 1930s as the government kept investing in the economy and providing jobs. Okay, everyone, so next, 4.2.3 about World War II. Okay, in 1939, Stalin entered into a non-aggression pact with Hitler that allowing the Soviet Union to take control of the territories that formerly belonged to the Russian Empire, which is the Baltic states, Eastern Poland, and Moldova, except Finland. Okay, but the Finnish force successfully defended their country from the Red Army. On June 1940, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, an attempt to invade the Soviet Union, but this campaign was initially devastating. The Soviet Union survived largely because of its sheer size, and a vast amount of land was lost and millions of people were killed, but larger areas were left unconquered. Then the Soviet Union moved the war production further east, away from the Nazis, and had gotten help from the United States and United Kingdom to increase their production. Finally, the harsh Russian winter stopped the German Nazi armies. But in the meantime, Stalin moderated many of his harsh policies, including the persecution of the Russian Orthodox Church. In 1943, Soviet forces began rolling back the Nazi invaders and began winning. Soviets called this the Great Patriotic War. By May 1945, the Red Army swept through East Central Europe and occupied much of Germany, including the capital, Berlin. And after the victory, Stalin created the Warsaw Pact and the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance to counter NATO and the Marshall Plan. Okay, so everyone take a deep breath and we get into the to know about the global changes and local responses. In the years after World War II, communism had transformed the political and economic system of the Soviet Union. With the desire to spread the communist ideology, the Soviet Union led a struggle to compete against the capitalist countries of the West, which is the United States. And then the Cold War was initiated by the world's two superpowers as they attempted to undermine each other's system. They supported foreign government movements and insurgencies that represented their respective ideologies in other countries. Okay, both superpowers were determined to prove the superiority of their respective system. In 1957, the Soviet space program launched Sputnik, the first artificial Earth satellite, setting a number of records in the outer space. Meanwhile, both countries, United States and Russia, also compete in an arms race, building thousands of nuclear weapons. Um, though the competition never developed a hot war using nuclear. So the Soviet Union and its allied hostility toward the capitalism made them close off their economies and societies from the capitalist world. The Soviet Union and its satellite countries refused to get caught in the inequities of capitalism, therefore has sought to become economically self-sufficient. Maybe. The close Soviet society made people in the capitalist West to know less about the life in the Soviet Union, thus creating a perspective that the Soviet Union is a powerful and hostile competitor. Truthfully, Americans and others in the West country were blinded with the gasified that an extremely inefficient of Soviet system. Inequities also existed within the Soviet Union. Moreover, the support of communist movement worldwide and the arms race were serious economic drain on the country. Okay, 4.3, communism at an economic standstill. Okay, despite the setback of World War II, Stalin said in 1953 his 5-year plans have helped the Soviet Union to partially catch up the West economically, so that the Soviet Union was still behind, despite the spectacular scientific breakthrough such as the space program. At the end of 1950s, the Soviet Union had only caught up to the West of the 1920s. The Soviet Union was still relying on metal, wood, and still used coal as fuel, while industry in the West country they are um, advanced further front with petroleum and natural gas. Um, Realizing this change, Soviet planners implemented a shift in material and fuel use. capitalist economies are changing other ways, whereby consumers are more demanding and are more demanding. Production more flexible became the key to success, but the Stalinist Soviet economy was so rigid that Soviet planners could not restructure. And the consumer had a little voice to change the system. Military was a large portion of the country's economy and sought to be inefficient with the government owning all business. Managers saw no need to use the wisely or finding alternative fuel. In a country rich in natural resources, the communists promised jobs for everyone yet made no attempts to increase the productivity. That meant labor costs were high, the wages were low, and go no attempt for that. The bureaucrats government proved highly inefficient as resources became scarcer because they could not adequately exploit and deliver by the actions of various ministries of the government, hurting them in an attempt to be self-sufficient because other agency could not supply them. This practice create further redundancies and shortage of resources. Bureaucrats play it safe by locating news in enterprise, mostly in a big cities, to obtain supplies. In more cases, this lead to excessive migration to cities, creating congestion and high living costs and environmental problems. Though government bureaucrats helped ruin the government the Soviet economy, which they become the unhappiest segment of society and greatly wanted to change. As the privileged Soviet Union, they were displeased to see their standard of living drop below that of the poorer groups in the materially wealthy capitalist countries. Okay, so let's move to 4.4, Perestroika and Glasnost. In in 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became the leader of the Soviet Union. He immediately set out to reform his country's economic and political system, thus introducing by through perestroika, which which is the economic restructuring, and glasnost, informational openness. Okay, so his policy went against the communist ideals and established interests. The bureaucrats fought Gorbachev's policies by creating political turmoil. Okay, for perestroika is to divorce economic from politics, allow more local control, and introduce free market practice. And second, companies now have to find their own customers. The lack of capitalist banking and financial system meant that cash could not flow easily. Then the Soviet economy continued to spiral downward with frequent labor strikes. And for the glasnost is the policy of providing government information to citizens. to citizens. It allows citizens to know about the program of the Soviet government. Then, Glasnost was intended to empower citizens with knowledge. Freedom of information allows citizens to learn about the corruption, government abuse, and many problems of the Soviet government. Okay, in 1991, Gorbachev became the last Soviet Union leader as his policy to unravel the country. So he made a new union treaty that relinquished much of the Moscow political power to the republics. So on 19 August 1991, dissatisfied conservative communists attempted to seize power in Moscow, causing causing a massive public demonstration to support him. The Soviet Union dissolution accelerated in result of the demonstration, and this has caused for the Soviet Republic's declaration of independence led by Lithuania. The demand of the Soviet Union led many people around the world to wonder if Russia were still a world power. So figure 4.4, this is the poster about perestroika and glasnost. Okay guys, so this is the last for me about 4.5 women's role. Okay, in 1917, this communist ideology professed that women were equal to men. They achieved the equality following the revolution. During Soviet times, women moved into the position that traditionally held by men, such as jobs in government, medicine, economics, and also in the engineering. During World War II, some of the most decorated fighter pilots and infantry soldiers were women. So women achieved the equality in their careers, but usually not at home at all. After they completed their job at work, so many of them arrive home and they undertake the housework and childcare responsibilities. So consequently, they do the working hour between work and home. This idea that women are equal to men are still exists. Although many women lost their jobs or had jobs that were not paid for long periods. Full and meaningful equality has yet to be realized. So that's all for me. Then we will continue with Faris. Thank you.
Hello, hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Faris Danial Redzuan. I am from BA2463P and my student number is 2020997055. Okay, I am the last person to present in this group of region, which is the Russian and Federation, and my topic is subregions. So, as you all can see, the Russian and the neighboring countries can be divided into three subregions that share many similar characteristics. So, there are the Slavic countries, the second one is the Southern Caucasus, and the last one is Central Asia. I will present about these subregions more in detail in the next slides. Okay, let's begin with the figure 5.1 shows the map of Slavic countries. We can focus on the top right and we can see the countries in the Slavic countries which are Belarus, Russia, Ukraine and Moldova. So let's begin with the first country, which is the Russian Federation. Everyone, do you know that the Russian Federation is by far the largest in land area of any country in the sub-region and in the world? It is nearly twice as large as Canada, United States and China. Ladies and gentlemen, the Slavic countries seen on map today became independent only in 1991 with the boundaries they had as Soviet republics. This situation is also true for the Russian Federation, though the Russians control the Soviet Union and its predecessor, the Russian Empire. Next country is Ukraine. Prior to 1991, Ukraine independent only for a brief period after World War I, until it became part of the Soviet Union in 1992. But before, it was part of the Russian Empire. And the third country is Belarus. Belarus was never independent before 1991 and was usually part of either the Russian Empire or the Polish, Lithuanian Kingdom. Of the former Soviet republics, Belarus is the most closely tied to the Russian Federation, and since 1991, Belarusians have considered creating a Belarusian Federation. Okay, and the last country is neighboring countries Moldova. Moldova too was never independent and has been a distinct territory for fewer than 200 years. Many Romanians and Moldovans hope to unite their two countries after dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. But the Russian military station in the country prevented this. Worried about a union of Moldova and Romania, Russians and Ukrainians living in Moldova declare their own republic in Transnistria region. So now let's see what are their economic activities of the Slavic countries. Okay, the Slavic countries have three economic activities. The first one is manufacturing activity, second fishing industry, and the third one is mining industry. So let's see more details about the manufacturing, fishing and mining industry. The first one is manufacturing activity. These countries are famous with automobile manufacturing company. They did the assembly of the BMW 3 Series, production of the Chevrolet Tahoe, and other automobile companies like Hyundai and Kia Motors. The location is located in Kaliningrad Oblast, Russia. And for your information, their company is named Avtotor or ABTOTOP or Avtotop in Russian. It is known as one of the largest producers and assemblers of cars in the world. And it is a proof that automobile production is a significant industry in Russia. We are moving to the next economic activities, which is fishing industry. Other than manufacturing activity, Russia is the leading producer of fish. It is located in Moscow before moved its main office in Vladivostok, where the Russian Fishery Company is located. They harvested 3,190,946 tons of fish from wild fisheries and another 114,752 tons from aquaculture. And the least economic industry is mining industry, oil. Russia has specialized on exploration, extraction, production, refinement and sale of petroleum products. The location of the company is located in Moscow, Russia. The name of the company itself is PJSJ Rosneft Oil Company. And for your information, ladies and gentlemen, Rosneft is the third largest company of Russia and one of the largest oil companies ranking in terms of revenue. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna explain to you all about foreign investment in Russia. Okay, in the 1990s, corruption, poor infrastructure prevented much foreign investment from flowing into their Slavic countries. For example, from 1991 to the end of 2001, the foreign direct investment, or we call it as FDI, in Russia only amounted to US 18.2 billion, small compared to small compared to the $46 billion that was invested in China in 2000 alone. And after the mid 2000s, FDI in Russia expanded rapidly and reached a height of about $70 billion in 2008. The world recession cut this total by at least half in 2009, though 2010 showed some recovery. Next, the greatest investment was mainly by foreign corporations interested in Russia's vast mineral wealth, namely oil, natural gas, and metal ores. The Russian automotive industry also received investment. For example, Volkswagen opened a new $1.5 billion plant in Kaluga in 2007 to produce the VW Passat and Skoda Octavia. Other examples of FDI in Russia include the automobile industry, which Motorola that is tempting to gain a huge share of the world's third largest mobile phone market. And finally, the Russian government forced many foreign companies to divest their holdings in Russia's natural resources, especially in oil and natural gas. These actions have likely prevented some foreign investments. Next, we are moving to political divisions of Russian. The internal political geography of the Russian Federation includes a mixture of political units. The 89 political units fall into two categories: administrative and autonomous. The administrative unit consists of 6 federal territories, 49 regions, and 2 federal cities. In contrast, the autonomous units consisting of 21 republics and 1 autonomous region and 10 autonomous districts. These autonomous are able to craft many of their own laws and govern themselves somewhat differently than in the rest of the Russian Federation. Soviet law protected minority languages, religions, and culture. However, only 52% of the Russian Federation's approximately 30 million non-Russians live in the autonomous territories. As a way of controlling their vast country, the Soviets drew boundaries for the republics that deliberately left many members of ethnic groups outside their intended territories and included many Russians within them. Also, many recognized nationalities did not receive public status. Of the 90 numerically significant groups recognized in the 1989 census, only 35 had a homeland. My fellow classmates, I am now going to present to you all about the autonomous political. The autonomous political can be summarized into 4 groups. The first one is North European and the Middle Volga, Urals, Siberia. The second one is Siberia and the Far East. The third one is North Caucasus, and the last one is the territories of the Far North. Okay, the first group, which is the North European and Middle Volga Urals. For this group, both areas have been integrated into the Russian state since the 1500s. The people of the North European territories practice Eastern Orthodox Christianity. Their territories are largely in the boreal forests, which are agriculturally poor and have low population densities. The economies are resource-oriented, producing fuels for electricity, wood products, and ferrous metals. And the Middle Volga Urals groups represents the meeting ground between Finno-Turkic. The large number of Russians are Orthodox Christians, but many of the indigenous peoples are Muslims. Located in the mixed forest region, these territories have economics that vary considerably, from traditional agriculture to extractive industries and modern manufacturing. The second group is North Caucasus. Most of the peoples are Muslims, but Christians live in the area too. Ethnically and linguistically, the area is one of the most complex places in the world. The various peoples, however, share certain economic and cultural similarities that facilitate a mountainer identity. Their shared opposition to Russian rule has fostered cooperation with one another. The third group is Siberia and Far East. They contain Turkic and Mongolian peoples. Many of the peoples are Buddhists and practice nomadic herding until they were incorporated into the Soviet Union. They often keep their traditional ways of life amid large pockets of Russians who engage in extractive industries and raw materials and food processing. And lastly, the violence directed at Russians caused many Russians to leave. And the last group is territories of the far north. More than 30 different ethnic groups live in the far north, many numbering only in the thousands. 7 of the groups have Okraks, and only one group, the Yakuts, have their own republic, meaning that the majority of peoples lack a designated homeland. The territories are rich in diamonds, gold, iron ore, timber, and other national resources. During Soviet times, a flood of Russians seeking to exploit these resources reduced the percentages of the indigenous peoples to less than 16% of the occurrence. And lastly, the Russians also concentrated in towns associated with industry. And the last one is science, sports, and society. My fellow classmates, I believe that you all will amazed with how Soviet Union concern and protect their scientists and athletes and their society, because after I read the books about these topics, I am genuinely amazed and love the way they concern with the science and athletes and society. So, let's begin with the former Soviet Union strove to excel in science and sports and to improve life in society as never seen before in human history. Science and sport achievement was also a way to show that communism was superior to any other political economic system. Scientists were pampered in terms of incomes and equipment and concentrated in new cities established in their new work. Like scientists, athletes were pampered athletes were pampered by given best sports facilities. Amazing. They were not expected to hold jobs, only train for sports for their countries. The Soviet Union sent its athletes to international events, especially the Olympics. Where the Soviet Union usually won the most medals of any country. The next one is everyone in society was also guaranteed a free university education and a job. Healthcare also provided without cost to everyone. Maternity leave was generous. Even the average citizen could go to a play, see a ballet, or visit a museum for a low cost. That's really good. And the goal of the Soviet government was to improve society to the degree that all citizens receive all their basic needs and much more, regardless of the social class. The Soviet government claimed to have eliminated unemployment and poverty. Though the Soviet system eventually failed, but it brought it brought about great political, economic, and social transformation in its 74 years of existence. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we finished with the Slavic countries, so we are now going to see the Southern Caucasus. What are the countries in the Southern Caucasus? Okay, this is the map of the Southern Caucasus map. We can see Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan in the map. And now let's see the economic activities of Southern Caucasus. It is quite different with the Soviet Union because the economic activities is quite different. The Southern Caucasus do economic activities of agricultural industry, service sector, and mining industry. For your information, the economics of Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan suffered greatly from the ethnic conflicts, even in Armenia, where little fighting took place. But then, in the 2000s, these three countries' economies steadily improved. The agricultural industry, okay, we are going to start with the agricultural activity. The agricultural industry in Georgia produced poultry and eggs, peanuts, pecans, cotton, tobacco, blueberries, and peaches. Thus, during Soviet times, for example, Georgia supplied over 90% of the Soviet Union's tea and citrus fruits. Furthermore, peanut production is based on diphthong. Peanut production and handling is conducted by scientists with the University of Georgia, or we call it as UGA, and US Department of Agriculture. While encouraging agricultural production, Moscow limited industrial development in Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. These policies made these republics heavily dependent on the other Soviet republics, especially Russia, for markets in which to sell their agricultural goods and sources for their industrial goods. However, poultry industry contributes over $18.4 billion to the Georgia economy every year. The next economic activity is service sector. Since 1991, these countries have worked to reduce this dependency of Russia by greatly altering and increasing their industrial and service sectors. Georgia, located on the sunny, warm eastern shores of the Black Sea, so it shows that Georgia has great tourist potential. That is why the tertiary sector that is boosted by the hotel, restaurant, transport and telecommunications industry. It is located in Batumi, Georgia. For example, an $80 million Sheraton hotel opened in Batumi in 2010, and a Redzuan is planned for 2012. The Sheraton Hotels and Resorts an international hotel chain owned by Marriott International, and it is the first time the international branded hotel opened in 2010. And the last economic activity is mining industry. Petroleum. Since they produce oil and natural gas, it will become one of the largest leading oil producers if it is ever able to exploit its oil fields fully. The company name is State Oil Company of Azerbaijan Republic, or we call it as SOCAR, and it is located in Baku, Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is one of the birthplaces of the oil industry because it produces about 873,260 barrels of oil per day and 29 billion cubic meters of gas per year as of 2013. These are also a source of income for Armenia and Georgia. And lastly, to avoid continued Russian control in other ways, Georgia and Armenia and other Azerbaijan are developing trading relationships with are trading are developing trading relationships with each other countries, most notably with Iran, Turkey, and the United States, and those in Europe. We are now going to see the culture of the Southern Caucasus. Though the Southern Caucasus is a small area of the world, the sub-region is culturally very diverse, partly because it is lies at the history contact zone between the Turkish, Persian, and Russian empires. Many languages are spoken in the sub-regions. They are different. They are of different language families, so most have little in common. The Georgian language is in the Caucasian language family and has a unique alphabet. Armenian is Indo-European but stands alone in its own branch and has a distinct alphabet of 38 letters, derived mostly from Greek. Azerbaijan is in the Ural-Altic language family. The Georgians, See, and Armenians are both Christian. Georgians and Armenians are both Christian, and both adopted Christianity early in history. In the AD 30s, 300s, the Armenians claimed their country was the first in the world to adopt Christianity officially. The Armenian Apostolic Church has been independent since the Middle Ages and expressed a unique view of Christianity. The Georgian Church is associated with the Eastern Orthodox Christian churches. Arabs introduced Islam in the 600s and 700s into Azerbaijan. In the 500s, the Shia branch of Islam came to the country and now dominates, making Azerbaijan and Iran the only two countries in the world where Shia Islam is practiced by the majority of the population and controls the government. Despite their close ties with Iran, Soviet secular policies influenced Azerbaijan greatly. For example, Azerbaijan's Muslims, unlike those in Iran, drink wine and women are not veiled or segregated. In 1991, the Azerbaijani government also went against the wishes of Iran and adopted a modified Latin alphabet for Azerbaijani instead of the Arabic alphabet. The original alphabet of the Quran and the alphabet used in many Muslim countries. The Latin alphabet is customarily used in Roman Catholic and Protestant countries, but also in nearby Turkey, where the language is similar to Azeri. Now I would like to present about the ethnic peace and conflict in the Southern Caucasus. History has given to differing cultural combinations in the Caucasus. Some ethnic groups are closely related and others are not. Many live in peace, while others are locked in conflict. For example, the Azerians who have an autonomous republic in Georgia live peacefully with the Georgians, though they are Muslims and the Georgians are Christians. Despite differing religions, the Azerians are indistinguishable from Georgians, and most Azerians consider themselves Georgians. Relations among other groups have not been so peaceful. The Ossetians and Akhbars both have their own autonomous republics within Georgia, but they distrust the Georgians and feel so loyalty to the Georgian state. Both groups sought independence for their republics in 1991 and 1992. But the Georgian military intervened and great bloodshed resulted. The Russian army helped to maintain a ceasefire in South Ossetia. Though Russian military personnel aided the Akbar's cause, the Russian government worked with the UN to establish a ceasefire in Abkhazia. The persecution of Armenians had been a lasting effect of this part of the world. In 1895, the Ottoman government must record 300,000 Armenians within its realm. Again, in 1915, during World War I, the Ottoman government tortured, exterminated, and deported its Armenian population, claiming that the Armenians were a threat. Somewhere between 600,000 and 2 million Armenians were exterminated out of pre-war population of about 3 million in what can be referred to as the Armenian genocide. Many Armenians become refugees, migrating across their traditional homeland or leaving it altogether. By 1917, fewer than 200,000 Armenians remained in Turkey. It was not just this one period that inflicted a toll on Armenians. Over 1,000 years, foreign invaders wreaked havoc numerous times and scattered this population. Today, over half of the Armenian population live outside of Armenia and diaspora. About half of the diaspora community lives in the other CIS countries. The other half lives in the communities from India across the southwestern Asia, Europe, and North America. With a sizable number in the United States, interestingly, many Armenians in the diaspora speak the Western dialects of Armenian, associated with Eastern Turkey, formerly in the Ottoman Empire. Armenians in Armenia speak the Eastern dialects. Nevertheless, despite dialectical differences, the Armenian diaspora has close ties with Armenia. Many immigrants now serve in the Armenians government, and the Armenian government considers Armenians abroad to the member of the Armenian nation. Okay, we are now at the last subregions of the country of the Russian, which is the Central Asia. Based on the figure 5.3, this is the map of Central Asia, and there are 5 countries in Central Asia which we can see: Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. And now let's take a look of their economic activities. It is not quite different with the other subregions, because still the economic activities are mining industry, but in the oil and gas, agricultural industry, and mining industry. The first economic activities is mining industry in oil and gas. As a result of the new cooperation between China and Central Asia, new oil and natural gas pipelines have been built between Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, and China. China is the largest oil and gas provider, also joined with a Kazakhstani oil and gas company to purchase Mangistau Munai gas. That's what it's called. A Kazakhstani oil company. That is why their products is oil and natural gas. The 3 major oil refineries are Atirau, Shymkent, and Pavlodar. And majority of natural gas reserves are located in the west of Kazakhstan. Because all 5 countries produce similar commodities, which is oil, natural gas, and cotton, rivalry rather than cooperation is most common. Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, however, do not have large fuel reserves like the other three. Consequently, the other three have shut off fuel as a political lever against the neighbors. Furthermore, the headquarters are in Nur Sultan, Astana, Kazakhstan. Gazmunay Gas or KMG, state-owned oil and gas company of Kazakhstan. Lastly, Kazakhstan is a major transit country for gas exports from Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan to Russia and China. The next economic activity is agricultural industry. Ladies and gentlemen, during the Russian imperial period and especially under Soviet domination, the economic output of these five countries was redirected to supplying the needs of Russia. When the civil war in the United States in the 1860s prevented Russian industry from receiving its cotton supplies, the Russian government saw a great opportunity to Central Asia to create its own supply of cotton. Not just that, they are the largest crop produce weight. They are the largest crop produce weight. Minor crops include of barley, cotton, sugar beet, safflower, flax, and rice. It is also located in Kazakhstan. Other than that, they've been supported by food and agricultural organization. And Kazakhstan is one of the world's major wheat and flour exporters. So, their last economic activity is mining industry. From mining industry, they produce zinc, copper, lead, and precious metals. The core operations are in Kazakhstan. Most are in East Kazakhstan region. Next, Kazin company was sold to the private sector and Glencore International AG. Then Glencore International AG became the company main investor. We are now moving to culture, traditional and modern in Central Asia. Modern Central Asians are settled, but many of their ancestors were nomadic, and their culture still reflect the traditional ways of life of their ancestors. For example, in traditional Kazakh culture, it is customary to ask about the well-being of someone's livestock before inquiring about the person's health and that of his or her family. The dwelling of these nomadic peoples was the yurt, a circular tent consisting of a willow wood frame covered in wool felt. An opening at the top allows smoke to exit from the fire used for cooking and heating. Modern Central Asians no longer live in yurts, but they use them as decorative motifs for building or erect them in their yards and sleep in them during the summer. The yurt is an important symbol of national identity and appears on the national flag of Kyrgyzstan. Carpet making and horse breeding are important national traditions for the Turkmens. For the Turkish, 5 traditional carpet designs are incorporated into Turkmenistan national flag. A breed of horses well adapted to the desert, in the breed of national significance, appearing as the central figure in Turkmenistan national emblem. Many Turkmen still own at least one Akalteki. Modern Central Asians are by no means homogeneous, and each group has a unique history of ethnic development, though many of them are closely related. The first one, Kazakhs emerged as a distinct people in the 14th from a mixture of Turkic and Mongolian nomads in Central Asia. Second, the ancestors of the Kyrgyz probably originated in Mongolia. After the 800s, they mixed with Turkic tribes from the south and west and adopted their current name, Kyrgyz, which means 40 clans in the Turkic languages. The 40 clans are represented on the national flag with a sun that has 40 rays. During its Azaris, both Kazakhs and Kyrgyz were called Kyrgyz, illustrating that the languages of two peoples are closely related. And the third one, Turkmens trace their ancestors back to August tribes that inhabited Mongolia and southern Siberia around Lake Baikal. In the 700s, these tribes migrated into Central Asia and assimilated Turkic and Persian tribes, giving rise to the Turkmens. Turkmen probably means pure Turk, or most Turk-like of the Turks. Number 4. Uzbeks are a Turkic people who moved into the lands now known as Uzbekistan in the 1500s. They are closely related to the Turkmens but also have close ties with Tajiks. Number 5. Tajiks probably acquired their name from an old Arab tribe. The Tajik language is a Persian language and was not distinguished from Persian or Farsi until the Soviets designated Tajik as a unique language. At the same time, Tajiks had not differentiated themselves from Uzbeks, though the Uzbeks are a Turkic people. Both groups commonly spoke each other's languages. The people-ethnic conflict of Central Asia. The ebb and flow of history created an ethnically complex sub-region with significant minority populations in most countries. The ethnic mosaic and many of the tensions that exist between groups can be attributed to Soviet policies. In the 1920s, the Soviet drew the republic's boundaries in a way to help the communist government in Moscow keep control over Central Asia. For example, the Soviets drew the boundaries of Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan so that they arbitrarily zigzag through the fertile and densely settled Perdana Valley, leaving many Kyrgyz, Tajiks, and Uzbeks in the neighbors countries. These boundaries pit Central Asians against one another, formally weakening their resistance to Moscow's rule and even resulting in the people looking to Moscow to maintain peace. Soviet policies also resettled many Russians in the sub-region. The presence of Russians was another means for the Soviet government to control Central Asia. During World War II, Stalin built many factories in Central Asia because the sub-region was out of reach of the Nazi military. He moved Russians and other peoples from across the Soviet Union to work in these factories. As part of this effort, he also shifted many Central Asians to each other's republics and relocated ethnic groups he did not trust to Central Asia. Soviet policies eventually split Central Asian societies into two groups for whom republics were named, tended to maintain traditional ways of life in rural areas. While the imported ethnic minorities, particularly Russians, became the industrial, business and civil servants and dominated the urban areas. For example, in Tajikistan's capital city, Dushanbe, only 39% of the population was Tajik in 1989. Many Central Asians view the Russians within their countries with resentment and suspicion as unwanted reminders of Soviet rule. Moreover, while many Central Asians speak Russian, few Russian bother to learn Central Asian language. Central Asians also resent the privileged economic positions that Russians continue to hold within their countries. New anti-Russian policies and the general anti-Russian attitude of many Central Asians have caused many Russians to emigrate since 1991. The relationships between Central Asian governments and ethnic groups have not been positive either. For example, anger at the ethnic minorities in Uzbekistan has led to violence at the immigration of these minorities. Tajik authorities have criticized neighboring Uzbekistan for not recognizing the uniqueness of Tajik culture and forcing many Tajiks in Uzbekistan to register as Uzbeks. At the same time, violence against Uzbeks in neighboring countries caused many Uzbeks to migrate to Uzbekistan after a civil war in Tajikistan in the 1990s. Thousands of Tajiks moved north into Kyrgyzstan in an attempt to escape the conflict, but this only intensified ethnic tensions in Kyrgyzstan.